Welcome, everyone. We're diving deep today, and I mean really deep. We're going to be looking at, well, imagine if we took every single word spoken by Mary in all the approved apparitions.
Centuries of messages.
Exactly. From all over the world. And what if we tried to understand, to really grasp what they all mean together?
It's like a giant puzzle, isn't it?
Yeah, like we're trying to piece together a mother's heart. Because at the end of the day, isn't that what we as Catholics are drawn to, trying to understand what Mary's trying to tell us, her children?
Absolutely. And instead of getting lost in the details of each individual apparition, this approach lets us step back and see the bigger picture. What are the common threads? What messages keep coming up again and again?
Okay, so where do we even begin? I mean, we're talking Guadalupe, Lourdes, Fatima, Quibejo, and so many more.
Well, the first thing that really stands out, I think, is Mary's constant call to prayer.
Prayer. I mean, it's kind of given, right? She's appearing, asking us to pray.
Right, but it's how she talks about prayer. It's not just about saying a few words. It's about a deep, genuine connection with God.
Ah, I see what you mean, like in Fatima, when she says,
Pray the Rosary every day to obtain peace for the world and an end to the war.
yes, the Rosary. She mentions it so often, doesn't she? Why do you think that is?
Well, the Rosary isn't just some repetitive chant. It's a powerful meditation, taking us through the life of Christ. It's a way to contemplate his mysteries, but through Mary's eyes.
Through Mary's eyes. I like that.
And I think it offers a unique kind of protection, a spiritual weapon, if you will, against evil, against all the things pulling us away from God.
It's like she's giving us a direct line, a way to tap into something much deeper.
Exactly. But it's not just about the words themselves. It's about the inner transformation, the change that happens within us.
Right. And that change, that transformation, it seems to be tied very closely to another recurring theme.
You're talking about repentance and conversion.
Exactly. Mary doesn't sugarcoat things, does she? She reminds us of the gravity of sin and what it does to us, to the world.
It's like a doctor giving you a difficult diagnosis. It might be hard to hear, but it's necessary for healing.
It makes me think of La Salette, where she appears weeping over humanity's sins. That always hits me hard.
La Salette is a powerful image, isn't it?
So powerful. Can you tell us a little more about it?
Well, Mary's tears weren't just sadness. They were a warning, a very real warning. She said God's arm of justice was growing heavy because of how much sin there was in the world.
Wow. So it's not just that our actions have consequences for us individually, but for everyone.
Precisely. It's about the state of the world and how our choices contribute to that.
That's a pretty sobering thought. But is there hope in all of this? I mean, it sounds kind of bleak.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole point, isn't it? Mary's not trying to discourage us. Her message is rooted in God's infinite mercy.
It's that tough love, right? Like a parent who disciplines their child because they love them.
Exactly. No matter how far we stray, no matter how much we mess up, God's love is always there, always ready to welcome us back.
And that brings us to something else I've always found fascinating about these apparitions. Mary's tone, the way she presents herself. She's not just some distant figure giving orders, is she?
No, not at all. She often uses terms of endearment, referring to us as my children. There is a tenderness, a genuine motherly concern that shines through.
It reminds me of Guadalupe, where she appears as this pregnant indigenous woman.
A powerful image of inclusivity, right? Embracing all cultures, all people.
And her words, "Am I not here? I who am your mother, are you not under my shadow and protection?" It's like she's wrapping us in this spiritual embrace.
Yes. It's a message of profound comfort, especially in times of trouble, in times of uncertainty. We are never alone.
And she always seems to introduce herself in a specific way.
With those titles that connect her so closely to Jesus, right? Mother of God, Immaculate Conception, Mother of the Word.
Right, they're not just formalities. It feels deliberate. Like she's emphasizing her unique role, her place in salvation history.
And by emphasizing her connection to Jesus, she's pointing us toward him.
It's like she's saying, listen to me, because I can lead you to him.
To a deeper understanding of his love, of his mercy, and that guidance, that maternal guidance, it takes on even greater urgency when we consider the warnings she delivers.
Because it's not all comfort and reassurance, is it?
Right.
She sounds the alarm too. She urges us to change our ways.
Exactly. And those warnings are often quite stark, quite direct.
Yeah, like that mother pulling her child back from the edge of a cliff, desperate to save them.
It's a powerful analogy.
What are some of the warnings that stand out to you?
Well, one of the most well-known and perhaps the most terrifying is the vision of hell shown to the children at Fatima.
Oh, wow, yeah, that's intense.
It's a stark reminder of the reality of hell, the eternal consequences of sin. But even that terrifying warning is motivated by love.
Because she doesn't want anyone to perish.
Exactly. She wants everyone to experience the joy of heaven, to choose life, to choose God.
Okay, so we've got these warnings, these calls to prayer and repentance. But she doesn't just leave us hanging, right? She also offers pathways to peace and mercy. Solutions, almost.
Absolutely. Mary doesn't just point out the problem. She offers very specific actions we can take. Concrete ways to turn away from sin and draw closer to God.
It's not just about avoiding punishment. It's about actively pursuing holiness, a deeper relationship with God.
You got it. It's about that transformation we talked about earlier.
So what are some of those actions? What does Mary suggest we do?
Well, the rosary, obviously, that comes up constantly, but she also stresses the importance of frequent confession and receiving the Eucharist.
It's like she's reminding us of the incredible gifts God has given us in these sacraments, these wellsprings of grace and forgiveness.
Yes, exactly. She's calling us to regularly cleanse our souls and to receive the spiritual nourishment we need to grow in holiness, to become more like Christ.
It's about staying connected to the source of our strength, constantly renewing ourselves.
And along with those devotional practices, she also emphasizes the importance of penance and sacrifice.
Ooh, that one can be tough for us, can't it? Especially in today's world. It's not exactly a popular concept.
You're right, it's not always easy to hear. But it's not about self-flagellation or punishing ourselves. It's about recognizing the need to detach from worldly desires.
To offer up our difficulties.
Yes, for the conversion of sinners, like in Fatima, where she urged the children to sacrifice yourselves for sinners.
It's about love, ultimately. Love that goes beyond our comfort, beyond our own needs.
Precisely. A love that's willing to embrace discomfort, even suffering, for the sake of others.
We'll dive deeper into these specific practices in part 2 of our deep dive.
Looking forward to it.
It's amazing how these themes are interwoven throughout all these messages.
Isn't it?
It's like she's giving us a tapestry, a roadmap to navigate life and draw closer to God.
And what's fascinating is that her message isn't confined to specific times or places. It's a global call to action, relevant for all people in every era. We'll explore that global dimension of Mary's messages after a short break.
We're back. And you know, it's incredible how consistently Mary points us toward specific spiritual practices.
Throughout history, yeah.
Like she's giving us a tangible way to answer her call.
I like that. Tangible.
We talked about the rosary, the
Yeah.
sacraments, but penance and sacrifice.
Yeah.
That's where it gets a little tricky, right?
Yeah.
Especially in today's world.
It's definitely a concept that can feel a little out of sync with our modern sensibilities.
Right.
But it's so important to understand what she means. Penance and sacrifice aren't about punishment.
Or like earning God's favor.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that life isn't just about our own comfort and desires.
So it's more about detachment.
In a way, yes. Mary's inviting us to let go of those things that pull us away from God.
The worldly things.
And to offer up our difficulties, the big and small, for the good of others.
So it's like a shift in perspective, putting others before ourselves.
Exactly. It's choosing love over selfishness, even when it's hard.
Which it often is.
Remember in Fatima when Mary asked the children to sacrifice yourselves for sinners?
Oh yeah, that line always gets me.
It's so powerful.
But also confusing. I mean, what did she mean by that?
She wasn't asking them to endure physical pain for its own sake. It was about embracing discomfort, inconvenience, out of love.
For the salvation of souls.
You got it.
So our small sacrifices, they can actually have a ripple effect. It's a challenging concept.
It's about recognizing the power of uniting those small sacrifices with Christ's sacrifice on the cross. It's mind-blowing to think our everyday struggles can become something so meaningful.
Okay, but how? How do we actually do that? I mean, life is busy. I'm not sure I'm walking around looking for ways to suffer.
And you don't have to. It's not about seeking out suffering, but finding meaning in the suffering that already exists.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
Think about those little daily annoyances we all experience. Traffic jams, long lines, technology glitches.
Ugh, don't even get me started on technology glitches.
Right, but instead of letting those things frustrate you, offer them up.
Offer them up, like a prayer.
Exactly. As a small sacrifice for the conversion of sinners, just like Mary suggested at Fatima. It's like turning those negative moments into something positive, something spiritually powerful.
I love that. Turning lemons into lemonade, but for the soul.
You got it.
Yeah.
And remember, Mary also emphasizes fasting and abstinence. Those practices, done with the right intentions, can be really powerful tools for detaching from worldly comforts and growing in self-discipline.
Yeah, fasting. That's a tough one, especially in our culture where food is like everything.
Start small, maybe try fasting from certain foods on certain days or skipping a meal once a week.
Baby steps.
Exactly. And it's not just about abstaining from food, it's about using that hunger to cultivate a hunger for God.
To focus on spiritual nourishment over physical gratification.
Now you're getting it.
So by practicing all of these things,
Prayer, penance, the sacraments.
we start to change from the inside out.
It's a gradual process of conversion, letting those practices shape our hearts and minds.
Bringing us closer to Christ.
That's the goal.
This reminds me of what Mary said in Medjugorje. Dear children, I invite you to decide for God and to begin to live according to his commandments.
It's a call to action, isn't it?
It's not enough to just hear the message. We have to live it.
Exactly. Put it into practice in our daily lives.
And when we do, that's when the real change happens, right? Not just in us, but in the world around us.
You're absolutely right. It's about becoming living examples of Christ's love in the world, radiating his peace and mercy. And that brings us back to the global dimension of Mary's message. She's not just speaking to individuals, but to humanity as a whole.
We're all connected.
Part of one human family.
You mentioned Kibeho earlier. Can you talk a little bit more about that, especially in light of this global perspective?
Well, in Kibeho, Rwanda, Mary explicitly said, "When I show myself to someone and talk to them, I want to turn to the whole world." It's a powerful statement. Her message isn't limited by geography,
It's for everyone.
no matter their nationality, culture, or background.
And it's especially poignant given what happened in Rwanda later, the genocide.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? A reminder of what happens when we reject love and mercy.
But even in the midst of that darkness, there's hope.
Right.
Because Mary's message is a call to unity, to reconciliation.
To recognize our shared humanity and build a world where love triumphs over hate.
It's a powerful message and one that feels so relevant today. But how do we actually do that? In the midst of our busy lives, how do we integrate these timeless teachings?
That's a great question, and one we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive. We'll look at practical ways to make Mary's messages a living reality in our modern world.
Okay, so we're back, and we've spent all this time talking about the incredible depth of Mary's messages. But now comes the real challenge, right? It's one thing to listen and learn, but how do we actually live this stuff?
You've hit it right on the head. It's easy to be intellectually stimulated by these messages, but the real work, the true test, is integrating them into our lives, our everyday lives.
Exactly, because, well, let's be real. We're not all living in monasteries, you know.
Right.
We've got jobs and families and commitments. Life is busy.
Life is chaotic.
So how do we take these profound messages and make them work in our messy modern world?
Well, first, I think it's important to remember that small, consistent steps are more powerful than sporadic grand gestures.
Oh, I like that. So you're not saying we have to overhaul our entire lives overnight.
Nope. Start small, pick something manageable, something you can actually incorporate into your daily routine.
Okay, so give us some examples. What are some baby steps we can take?
Well, Mary always talks about the rosary. What if you committed to praying just one decade a day?
Just one decade.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be this huge undertaking. Find a quiet moment during your commute or while you're doing the dishes.
Oh, or before bed.
Exactly. Make it part of your life.
Make it a habit.
Exactly. And remember those little daily annoyances we talked about? The traffic, the spilled coffee.
Oh, yeah. I have plenty of those.
Instead of letting them get to you, try turning them into little sacrifices.
Wait, what? How do you do that?
Offer them up for the conversion of sinners, just like Mary suggested at Fatima.
So like a prayer. I'm turning my frustration into a prayer.
Exactly. It's taking something negative and transforming it into something positive, something spiritually powerful.
I love that. It's like, what's that saying? Turning lemons into lemonade.
Yeah.
But for the soul.
That's a great way to put it. And what about confession? Mary talks a lot about frequent confession.
Yeah, confession. I'll admit, I tend to put that one off.
Maybe try going once a month instead of just during Lent or Advent. You'd be amazed how freeing it is to regularly clear the clutter from your soul.
To hit the reset button, so to speak.
Exactly. And even just a few minutes of Eucharistic adoration each week can be so powerful.
Yeah, just being in the presence of Jesus.
Letting yourself be filled with his peace.
So we're talking about prioritizing that time with Christ, making him the center.
And all of these practices ultimately are about fostering a deeper relationship with him.
That's really the core of Mary's message, isn't it? She's pointing us toward her son.
Always.
It's not about following rules blindly or, like, checking boxes.
It's about opening our hearts.
To his love, to his mercy.
And allowing that to transform us from the inside out.
And that transformation spills over into everything else, right?
Absolutely. Our relationships, our work, everything.
It reminds me of what Mary said in Bano. Believe in me, I will believe in you.
Beautiful, isn't it?
It's like she's saying we're not alone on this journey. She's there with us every step of the way.
Interceding for us, guiding us.
Toward her son. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this?
Don't be overwhelmed. Start small. Be consistent. And above all, trust in Mary's guidance. She will lead you to our son, and in him you will find a peace and joy that the world cannot give.
Beautifully said. And to all of you listening, thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Which of Mary's messages resonated most with you? What are you inspired to do? Share your experiences, and let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of our faith.